This episode of Shaun of the South is brought to you by Case Knives. My granddaddy used to say the best cure for idle hands was to build something. In today's day and age, everything's done with a click, a swipe, or a tap of your finger. Put away the screens. Put your hands to work with a Case knife.
Hey, you are listening to Shaun of the South, and I'm your host tonight, Sean Dietrich. And man, we got a great show lined up for you here, coming to you live via the podcast airwaves and the radio waves all over this fine nation. This wonderful group of folks you see behind me here on the stage fixing to play music for you is the Hot Club of Cowtown, everybody. The Hot Club of Cowtown.
Send me flowers and say your love is true. Make it like you love me and say what you do. Don't you say you've missed me, I'm always on your mind. Don't whisper those sweet nothings I can't ever find. So I've gone to the mountains, picking bluebells and mountain columbine. Violets and birds of paradise, but forget-me-nots I'm skipping high. I'm leaving them behind. Don't you send me presents, don't call me on the phone. Don't leave me waiting all night alone. Don't say you'd regret it if I become his bride. 'Cause darling, if you love me, by my side. So I've gone to the mountains, picking bluebells and mountain columbine. Oh, I've gone to the mountains for violets and birds of paradise, but forget-me-nots I'm skipping high. I'm leaving them behind.
This portion of our program is brought to you by Visit North Alabama, the Mountain Lakes Tourist Association. Visit northalabama.org. Travel to visit 16 North Alabama counties and make this state what it is. Festivals, attractions, restaurants, outdoor activities all over the Yellowhammer State. How about Nakalula Falls in Gadsden, Alabama? A 90-foot tall waterfall, the most visited natural attraction in the entire state, named after a love-stricken Creek Indian princess who plunged to her death off this very waterfall in an act of teenage drama that dates way back before Facebook ever existed. Or visit Johnny's Barbecue in Coleman, Alabama, family owned since 1963. The best barbecue chicken, catfish, and more. Once you take a taste of their tender pork, it's so good, you'll ask your mother-in-law to slap you. Or visit the North Alabama Hallelujah Trail, a trail of 32 churches that are at least 100 years old, white timber frame buildings where a lot of shouting once took place. Once upon a time, historic sites that are still accessible to the public. Whatever you want to do, you can do it better in North Alabama. Look them up at Visit North Alabama or northalabama.org or hashtag Visit North AL. And now let's have another tune from the Hot Club of Cowtown, everybody. The Hot Club of Cowtown.
Sleep, sweet sleep. Why won't you come find me? Must you always remind me of all the things I've left undone? It's dark out, lights out. My mind should be dimming, but I thrash like I'm swimming. Elusive sleep, why won't you come? Troubles plague me through the night, keep me up till morning light, like a bully trying to pick a fight, and there's just no way to run. Daybreak, my days, I've just started dreaming, clock's already screaming. Another weary day's begun. From sorrow, how will I make it through tomorrow? A normal life I've been denied. It's dark out, the lights out, and there's no use pretending. These restless nights are never ending. The wheels are coming off this ride.
I'm going to read you a little bit of our mail this evening, a little bit of our mail sent in to us from listeners all over the nation who had nothing better to do than to take the time to put pen to paper and send us a few sentences hooked together. Our first letter comes from Don Vance in Fairhope, Alabama. Sean, my friend Smitty is going to turn 81 this week, and he's sort of like a father to me, even though my father's been dead for many years. This man has sort of filled the void and served as a stand-in dad when I didn't think I needed one. You don't think you'll need your dad in adult age, but you probably need him more than ever, because adult problems are far more complicated than kid problems. Plus, you've got to have someone to watch college football with. You just can't do it on your own. So please wish a happy 81st to Smitty from his surrogate son, Don. He listens to your show on his smart TV every week when he can, so I know he will hear this. Dear Smitty, from everybody here tonight, we hope you have the happiest 81st birthday you've ever had and will ever have again. Aaron, West Memphis, Arkansas. Sean, there's a chill in the air and it makes me feel so excited about where winter is going. Or maybe I'm excited because I've just started work on my very first novel. I don't know what'll happen. Maybe nothing. But I'm writing just the same. And I just want to say thanks for encouraging me to write and reminding me through your show that it's possible to do this without being a hyped up, heavy university degree holder from a big college. I'm a community college graduate and didn't think I'd do anything with my little degree. I'm having more fun than I've ever had before. My novel is about my life, and I'm looking at my life differently because the writing process makes me take a different seat in the theater than I would normally take, if that makes any sense. Thanks for the encouragement. Love, Aaron. Dear Aaron, I hadn't done a thing, darling. So here's to you finishing the most important project of your life. Danny from Knoxville, Tennessee. Good show. That's all. Don't have anything lengthy to say. Liked your stuff. Have a nice day. Dear Danny from Knoxville, Tennessee, try not to use so many words next time. Bernice Walter, Franklin, Tennessee. My husband and I just got our daughter out of the house and situated in a new job in Nashville, Tennessee. She's got a great house and a great new position, and I'm happy for her. But we are even more happy for ourselves because we finally have our life back. She was the last kid out of the house, and let me tell you, Sean, we are gonna party. Seriously, I just want my daughter to know that we are so proud of her, so proud. And honey, home is only 30 minutes away if you ever need us. I love you so much, Danica. Daddy and I miss you. Gregory Lyons, Charlotte, North Carolina. Hi, Sean. I'm originally from Andalusia, Alabama. We call it Andy. But I hadn't been there many years, and I miss it sometimes. I miss it. Though it's nothing like what it was when I was growing up. Things change, I guess, and you can really never go home. Not truly, because home is never the same as it was. But when I listen to your show, I am somehow reminded of the old days in our town, Andy. So thanks for the episodes. Keep them coming. Also, I want to wish my wife's father, Charles Purdy, a happy birthday because he will be riding in the car with us from Tennessee to Alabama in a few weeks, and I want him to hear his name over the car stereo. It will really freak him out. Dear Charles Purdy, happy birthday from everyone here tonight. I hope you are sufficiently freaked out. Georgiana Manson, Baxter Springs, Kansas. My kids are away with my brother and my sister, visiting my parents' farm. It's the farm I grew up on. It's the hayloft where I learned how to fly just before landing in a big pile of golden hay. It's the farm where I learned the difference between plowing and disking, which is something my father used to talk for hours about. I would have gone with my kids this year to the farm, but I'm down with a cold, and I don't want to get my elderly parents ill with what I have, so this message is for my kids. Enjoy the place where I discovered who I was. And if you are fortunate enough to love it the way I did, then you will discover who you are too. But I already know who you are, because I'm your mother. You are the meaning of my entire life, and there isn't a day that doesn't go by that I don't thank God for you. Thanks for reading my message over the air, Sean. Your friend, Georgiana. Myra Scott, Center Hill, Florida. Sean, thanks for mentioning my mother Beulah's 94th birthday over the air. She loved it, and I made sure she put in her hearing aids so she wouldn't miss it. Thank you again, you made her day. Dear Myra, no problem. Jason McGee, Grants Pass, Oregon. Hey man, I met someone who told me about you up here in Oregon, if you can believe it. We talked about your show, and I found you online and listened to 10 of them on a long drive. It was a nice experience hearing someone talk kind of like they do back in my hometown of Houston, Texas. I've been homesick for the past 2 years. The reason I'm writing you is because I heard you read mail over the air, and I had something I wanted to share with you. I just found out this past week that I have a son in Texas that I had no idea I had. The long story short version is my girlfriend was pregnant when we split up, and I did not know it. So I left town when we broke up, and I thought it would be forever. She didn't tell me, probably because I was such a jerk back then, and she didn't want to make her life any harder than it already was. I feel so bad. I know you don't have all day to read my story, but when I found out that I had a child, something inside me broke. I've been wasting my life working on a dead-end career that is going nowhere. Yeah, the money's good, but I'm tired of money. Who cares about money when you don't have no one? I don't know if my ex-girlfriend and I will ever find a road back to where we were a long time ago, but I do know that I will be there for my son no matter what happens, no matter what. I am going to be his father forever. I'm going to be a man with a simple life. I'm going to make sure my son has all the things I never had. And I only hope that the people I've hurt will forgive me. I'm writing this to you from the back seat of a cab that's taking me to the airport. I will fly back home to Houston, Texas, and I will see my son for the first time. Say a few words to heaven for me, brother. Dear Jason, I'm going to say a few words to you if you're listening. You're a good man. Don't you ever forget that. Don't you ever doubt it. Don't you ever question it. And above all, don't ever stop working on it. Because you are a good man, and everybody makes mistakes. Now, I too have memories of once being a good man. It's true. I was once a kind-hearted, soft-spoken individual, but I'm ashamed to tell you I'm not that way today. Today I am not that man. And do you know why? Because college football has turned me into a hopeless heathen. I hope you have a happy game day. That's letters from our listeners. We're going to have another tune here from the Hot Club of Cowtown, everybody. The Hot Club of Cowtown.
can't believe I ever felt a gentle summer rain, or heard the rain fall when it didn't call your name. Never tasted anything quite as sweet as your lips kissing mine late at night when we meet. Can't remember what I thought romance was. Don't know what I ever thought a dance was. Didn't know what fire was hidden in a kiss. Never knew what happened between happiness and bliss. I can't believe I ever felt a gentle summer rain, or heard the rain fall when it didn't call your name. I never tasted anything quite as sweet as your lips kissing mine late at night when we meet. I never tasted anything quite as sweet as your lips kissing mine late at night when we meet.
Well, winter came and it went. It came and it went very, very fast. This past season in Northwest Florida and South Alabama, we had a total of 9 minutes of winter, which is a big improvement. Last year we had 11 minutes of winter. Now, most people, they miss that because it came while they were sleeping around 3 a.m. in the morning. Winter kind of came in and then it just left. And so for many people, they went to bed and it was summertime, and they woke up and it was already spring. I went to the post office after the first of the year. The new year had come and left, and I went to the post office to finally mail my Christmas packages. Now, this is because, to be fair, I'm what is known as a procrastinator. Now, procrastinators get a bad name. In fact, this personality trait is often seen as a weakness. It's thought to be a lazy personality trait, or a symbol of your slothfulness. I disagree. It takes a whole lot of commitment and dedication to be a good procrastinator. For one thing, people who don't procrastinate, people who just get up and mow their lawn at 5 a.m. in the morning and then go into their garage and separate nuts and bolts and screws just for fun. These people, they don't think as much as we do about what they're doing. And so they do things fast and they do it hastily. We procrastinators, we think long and hard about what we're going to do. We think about everything we're going to do about 50,000 times more than somebody who is not a procrastinator, because we have to consider whether or not we're going to do it, and we will think about this thing longer than it would actually take to do this sort of thing. I had been thinking about mailing these packages for an entire month. And every day I would think about it and I would concentrate. It's almost a kind of spiritual meditation. I would concentrate on whether or not I was going to go to the post office that day. And I knew after about 60 minutes worth of thinking about it that I would rather have a turkey sandwich with mustard. And I would do it tomorrow. That's what I told myself. Do it tomorrow. You see, there's no better word in the English language than tomorrow. I could accomplish anything in this world, the most difficult task, if you let me do it tomorrow. When I got to the post office to mail my packages, the packages in my arm, I saw the parking lot was completely full. I mean, cars were coming in and they were getting jammed at the entrances and the exits, and cars were parked right behind each other. There was a line standing out the door of that tiny little post office we got. And I realized something right then and there. Procrastinators far outnumber the non-procrastinators. This means that our whole world, our whole little community, the day-to-day tasks are done by procrastinators. That means the world as we know it is working just fine with the people who are at the helm. We don't need any more guilt about procrastination because all these people are obviously taking care of business. Of course, we take care of it at the very last minute, but it gets taken care of nonetheless. And I felt so warm and fuzzy about being who I was. You see, when I was much younger, the only retail job I ever had, I got fired from it. Now, I'm not proud of this, but the important thing to remember here is I did not get fired because I was a bad employee. I did not get fired because I was tardy. I didn't get fired because I was lazy. I didn't get fired because I wasn't doing my job or I was a crummy person. I didn't even get fired because I was a procrastinator. I got fired, and I'll never forget this. I got fired because I did not iron my shirt. I did not iron my shirt. Boss man came in. He saw me sitting there behind the desk in back where the break room was. He looked at me and he said, "God, don't you ever iron your clothes?" And at the time, I was eating a ham and Swiss on rye with extra mustard. And it is impossible to defend yourself intelligently while eating a ham and Swiss on rye with mustard. My mouth was full, and I looked at him, and I just sort of shrugged my shoulders. And well, things kind of went from there, and he fired me. He fired me. In 15 minutes, I had all my stuff packed and I was gone. I'll never forget that. I guess that's what happens to procrastinators. Yeah, I'm a messy person. I'll be the first to admit it. My truck, for instance, I was in it a few days ago and I was driving through town and I looked into my passenger floorboard and I saw a little green shoot growing out of a pile of 2-year-old decomposing trash on the floorboard. It was the sprout of a tree, an oak tree sprout. It already had one leaf growing out the top. Well, I considered uprooting this thing, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. I love greenery. My office, for instance, is a small 26-foot by 8-foot room, oblong, and there are stacks of books on every flat surface, big old tall stacks of books. And I do this on purpose. I keep them there, even though they clutter up my office, because one day, when I'm dead and gone, someone will walk into this room and they will actually believe that I read some of these books. So yes, I'm a procrastinator and I'm messy and I drive a truck that has over 200,000 miles on it. This is just the way I am. And while I was at that post office looking at all these cars lined up together, people waiting to get in and take care of business last minute, I felt I felt a community of procrastinators together with me. While I was walking into that post office, I saw a sign perched just in front of this little pond we got growing out back of our post office. It's a pond with lilies kind of growing on it and these big, tall, longleaf pine trees. And the sign said, "Beware of gators." And I stopped and I looked at that pond. I looked to see if I could see anything. I did see a little dark shape floating around in that pond. I thought it was a log at first, but logs aren't shiny and they don't have a snout. I'm not afraid of gators. I'm not afraid of them at all. I once lived in an apartment complex that had a large pond behind it. Large pond, well, actually it was less of a pond, it was more of a drainage ditch. It had moss growing on it and it smelled real bad when the wind was right. And there was this hand-painted sign out front on a piece of plywood poking up from the ground, and it said on it, "Y'all remember 'bout them gators." I knew who made it. It was our maintenance man, and he was an English major. There were rumors floating around that apartment complex that we had some bad gator problems. One of the most prevalent rumors was that a gator had crawled up onto land one night and eaten a Yorkshire Terrier named Izzy. But nobody knew if this was true or not. This story had been there since before anybody had moved in, and it was there long after everybody moved out. Nobody knew if it were true. I would come home after work and I'd see the kids who were the son and daughter of the woman who lived next to us in the unit next to us. She worked about 5 jobs. She was never home, and her kids were always getting into trouble. And they'd be sitting on the steps playing poker with each other, and they would be drawing tattoos, prison tattoos on each other's arms. And they'd see me and they'd say, "Hey, Mr. Sean, you see the gator?" I'd say, "There ain't no gator out there. Quit believing everything you read." They say, "No, I've heard stories. You heard about that Yorkshire Terrier named Izzy?" I said, "Listen, everybody's heard about that dog." I said, "But nobody I have met has ever seen a gator out there. Have you seen the gator with your 2 eyes?" They say, "Well, no." I said, "Look, come back to me when you get a picture of that thing." So everybody doubted that this gator was ever around until my Uncle John came to visit me one day. I came home after work and I saw my Uncle John sitting behind the apartment complex. He was sitting on an overturned 5-gallon bucket. And in his hand he had a fishing rod. And on the end of that fishing rod was a hook that was baited with a raw chicken breast. I said, "What are you doing? Are you nuts?" But I already knew the answer to this. My uncle has always been nuts. He's what my mother used to say, a guy whose cornbread ain't done in the middle. He said, "Shh, I want to see if there really is a gator out here." He said, "Shh." And well, we found out that day that sign was in fact true. We saw a gator crawl up out that water like a 1964 Pontiac GTO. And he was headed right for my Uncle John. He scurried toward John. John dropped the pole, and my uncle scurried up that hose pipe, that gutter pipe on the side of the apartment building, all the way up to the 3rd floor balcony where elderly Miss Johansson lived. You've never seen a big man move that fast in all your life. My Uncle John has a 42 waist and not a stitch of hair on his head. And it happened to be that same moment, elderly Miss Johansson was standing on her 3rd floor balcony smoking a Winston cigarette, wearing a pink bathrobe with hair curlers in. She looked at my Uncle John. She said, "Well, hey, big boy, are you just going to stand there? You're going to buy me a drink." I walked into that post office. I stood in line. It's cold and flu season. Cold and flu season. Nobody wants to shake hands in cold and flu season. I can see people fist pound all over the place. I don't even understand it. When I was a kid, there were 3 ways to greet somebody. You either shook their hand, or if they're an elderly woman, you did what we call the chest-to-chest hug. Sternum to sternum, put your hands around them, pat their back. If they're a young woman and you were a Baptist boy like me, you did what's called a shoulder-to-shoulder Baptist hug. Touch your shoulders together, reach your hand around her, give her just the gentlest little pat, and you let her go. You would never, never hug a young girl chest to chest, or else an onlooker might mistakenly think you're dancing. Everybody's fist pounding, fist bumping. Inside that post office was a cacophony, a chorus of Rottweiler sounding coughs and hacks. Oh Lord, I don't want to get sick. I'm just like everybody else. I just kind of put my t-shirt collar up over my nose and my mouth, and I tried real hard not to breathe until I turned blue. Just trying not to breathe. And the man in front of me, he started hacking and coughing. It sounded like he was about to blow out his lung. He hacked and he coughed, and then he finally sneezed. And the Baptist inside me said, "Bless you. Bless you." And he turned and he said, "Why, thank you." When he turned to look at me, I knew who I was looking at. I was looking at the only man in this world who has ever fired me. There was no doubt that it was him. I could see him. Yeah, he's aged a little bit, so have I. His eyes were red and puffy from whatever disease he was carrying. And his nose was running. There was this little stream of snot hanging down his right nostril. And his hair was a little bit disheveled. But by God, that shirt he wore was ironed so sharp you could cut a watermelon with the collar. He looked at me and I said, "Oh my God." And then out of instinct, I just reached out my hand and we shook. He said, "Oh no." I said, "What?" He said, "I shouldn't be shaking your hand. I've had the worst case of the flu I've ever had." While our hands were pumping, I just said, "Isn't that nice?" Oh, I recognized him and he recognized me. He said, "I saw you when you came in." He said, "But I wasn't going to say nothing." He said, "Truth be told, I didn't want to make it awkward on you. I didn't want to make it awkward on you. I know you probably hate me," he said. Well, I don't hate him. I never did hate him. Yes, it's true. I did find an old photo of him from a Christmas party. And I took it to Walgreens Pharmacy Film Center to have that photo enlarged to life-size proportions so I could hang it in my garage and throw darts at his face. And certainly, yes, I did at one time call Domino's Pizza and order 23 extra large pizzas with extra sauce and extra pepperoni to be delivered to his house on Memorial Day weekend. But that was not my idea. In my defense, that was my cousin Ed Lee's idea. Of course, I did not care for him, and whenever his name came up, I would say certain words that were very un-Baptist-like, but I didn't hate him. He explained himself to me. He said, "You know I was something to handle back then." He said, "That was the darkest period of my entire life. The darkest period my entire life. My wife had left me. My son was running with a bad crowd, getting involved in some bad things. And my daughter, she had tried to run away from home twice." He said, "It was horrible. And I know I was a jerk." Well, I would have used another word besides jerk. He said, I have thought about what happened between you and I felt bad for it for a long time. He said, I want you to know, I'm glad I ran into you today, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I could not believe what was happening to me. I could not believe it. I said, it's okay. I didn't know what else to say. It was almost as if I was dying and I was having a hallucinatory experience before I was sucked up into the afterlife. I just smiled at him and I said, "It's okay. It's okay." He said, Good, because you were an okay guy, and I really feel bad about that. An okay guy. Well, I guess there's worse things to be than just an okay guy. I could have been something else. Now, we finished up our little chat when the man behind the clerk's counter called us. He said, "Next," and my friend, I'm using that term very loosely, walked to the counter and he mailed his packages. And then I walked to the counter and I mailed my packages. And then we met outside again. I saw him out there struggling to get into his car, and we had a long conversation. We laughed a little bit and we talked, and it was nice. It was real nice. I looked at him and I saw a man. Until then, I'd always seen a supervisor who had a personality that was about as pleasant as 15-year-old vinegar. But I saw a man who was just the same as I was, working from sunlight to sundown, just trying to do the best he can. And after we talked, he said, "I really got to go." He said, "I got to go pick up my granddaughter from school." He said, "But it's really been nice, and I'm really glad I ran into you." I said, "Well, the pleasure was all mine." It really was. And then I held out my hand, and we shook. He said, "Oh, no, I keep forgetting I don't need to be shaking hands with this terrible flu." I reached my other hand, and I gave him a double-handed handshake. Because there are some things that are more important than the flu. And then, because my cornbread is not done in the middle, I reached my arms around him and I hugged him, chest to chest, and I patted his back. I said, "It was really good seeing you." And he got into his car and he drove away while I watched his car leave that parking lot and those taillights disappeared into nothingness. I was feeling a change inside me. Things were shifting. Ideas I once had about a man who I thought was the world's biggest toadstool, they were changing. But that's what happens when somebody gives you an apology. And that's what happens when you apologize to others. Something changes in the air. And it changes the way you feel about the universe and the nature of this world. And I made a resolution with myself. My resolution was to go home, and from here on out, for always and forevermore, I was going to iron and starch every single shirt that I own in my closet. No, I'm just kidding. My resolution was to go home and water that little oak tree growing in the floorboards of my truck. Hey, life is short. Watch out for the gators. Y'all be careful out there. Hey, thanks very much for having me this evening. It's been a wonderful pleasure. I hope everybody has a Happy New Year. Happy New Year,
Hey, thanks for listening to Sean of the South. I've been your host today, Sean Dietrich, and man, it's been a bona fide pleasure if I do say so myself. Hope you join us next week and maybe even the week after that if you ain't got nothing going on. This episode was brought to you by Case Knives, a tradition of my family dating back to my granddaddy, who once said the best way to cure idle hands was to build something. So keep your hands sharp with a Case Knife. That wonderful music you heard behind me today was the Hot Club of Cowtown. Since its beginning in the 90s, the Hot Club of Cowtown has continued to rise to meteoric, jaw-dropping virtuosity and unforgettable live shows. The Hot Club has toured extensively worldwide with favorites like Bob Dylan, Willie Nelson, just to name a few. Do yourself a favor and check them out at hotclubofcowtown.com, and you will not be disappointed with what you hear there. To find anything more about what I do, you can visit SeanOfTheSouthShow.com, and there you can find a full archive of our episodes dating back to the very first one all the way to the one you just heard. And while you're there, I hope you take the time to drop me a line to me about your birthday announcements, wedding invitations, bar mitzvahs, ice cream socials, potluck church socials, and anything else you can think of, and I'll read it over the air because I love to do that stuff for my friends. Speaking of friends, don't worry about the rules. By the time you learn the rules to life, you'll you'll already be too old to play. Adios.